Okay, so our first question, identify the point of view of the cartoon. Cameron, what'd you say?
We said it was like, it's not the third party's point of view, like it's whoever's like not voting for them.
Right.
Because they're like putting their votes in the trash, basically. Like if you vote for them, it's so insignificant that like your vote won't really matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know that person's not going to win, and so doing that is basically like you might as well not even vote. Okay. All right. The next question, we want to talk about electoral rules. There are 3 electoral rules that I know of that I can think of that will marginalize third parties and make it difficult for them to win. Zara, tell me one.
We said the electoral college.
Good. The winner-take-all feature of the electoral college, where whomever gets a plurality of the vote will win all of the electors. And if it said identify and explain, like if that was an actual thing you had to write for me, you'd have to make sure you gave me an explanation of it, you walked me through it, and maybe gave me a scenario so that I would best understand that. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2, Andrew, what's another one?
The campaign finance law.
Ooh, very nice. So explain to us how campaign finance law makes it hard for third-party candidates.
Well, since they're not big at all, they can't really support themselves in campaigns because they just don't have the money for it.
Absolutely. And so they have a harder time getting access to that public funding as well, right? Because they don't amass enough of the popular vote. Good. All right, there's one more. Anybody get it? We learned about it last class. Taylor.
Is it the single member district?
Good. Single member districts in the legislature. So it's the same process as the winner take all feature of the electoral college. It just pertains to the legislature. So your explanation would be the same. It would be that each geographic district will choose one person to go to Congress. Whoever gets a plurality wins. And as a result of straight ticket voting, money, media attention, notoriety, name recognition, etc., the Republican and Democrat tend to win. Okay? Bless you. Okay, so then our last question is why then? What is valuable about a third party? Go ahead.
If your third party actually like gets somewhere and gets big enough, kind of like the Green Party, it brings their attention, their issues that they feel like aren't covered well enough in major parties to light, and you can see that people do care about the environment, or people do care about this, or so on and so forth.
Absolutely. I think that is probably the most powerful thing, is they help to shape the agenda. You guys, they are using the election to try to drive what our elected officials are going to do. So when Ralph Nader says something like, let's raise minimum wage to $8 an hour in a debate, he probably knows that's extreme. But what that does is it forces the Republican and Democrat to have to take a position on it. They can be more brazen. You know, they don't have to be as filtered because their appeal isn't as broad. Okay? What else? Got any other ideas? Rebecca, what's something else said?
Well, we said that, and then I don't know, I can't really think of any other
That's okay.
pros.
Anybody have any other ideas?
I mean it's kind of similar, but I just said like they have like different ideas like you were saying that they bring into it. But it also shows like depending on years when they get like more or less of the public, it shows how the public's opinion.
Okay. So they can measure people's discontent. I love that. Does it make sense to you that third parties would do better in a time period of discontent? Because they're like another option. So if people are frustrated, that's really a time for third parties to really like register that discontent. Riley.
I was gonna say something similar that a third party is used when to show like discontent with like the 2 major parties as they're like getting their jobs done.
Okay. Good. Wyatt, what were you gonna say?
I'm kind of like that, but like if you just get kind of bored with the Republican and the Democratic Party, you can vote Libertarian or Green Party or Socialist Party or something along those lines.
No kidding. Would you like some options? I mean, like I want options. So it gives us more options. And I would say, you guys, I'm not an idiot. Like I know this, right? I teach this. I have voted for third party candidates, knowing full well they would not win. And I did it to register my discontent. Not that, Shannon Rosenfeld's one vote is going to make all that difference. But I want to say I am frustrated with you suckers. And I don't want you to win. And I refuse to give you my vote. But I also refuse to, not be a part of this process because it matters to me. So I'm going to use my voting for this person that I know is not going to win as a way to send a message to you. So hopefully to help shape that agenda.
It's also, as a politician, it's another way to get your name out there. So if you start and you get really popular with the third party, then maybe you'll be adopted by a major party and you can get
Yeah.
out there with these minor parties who maybe don't have a lot of people who
I never even thought about that, but that makes sense. Yeah, that's really good. Cool. I like that a lot. Okay, are we good with third parties? All right. So the last thing we're going to talk about then is this craziness. So let's look at this chart and see if we can break it down a little bit. We're focusing solely on the House of Representatives because the House is just kind of like a good mirror for what's going on in the country as a whole because of their size and because of the frequent elections. So this shows you, so we have 435 people in Congress, in the House, always. Like that's what we're capped at since the 1920s. When we say Democratic caucus or Republican caucus, GOP caucus, what that means is that if you're not a Republican or a Democrat, you need to pick a side. So like Bernie Sanders is a registered socialist. He caucuses with the Democrats because he's more of a Democrat than he is a Republican. So when we look at that then, this is saying that 344 people in the House of Representatives in 1982 were overlapping their votes. They were engaging in bipartisan kind of ways, and that you have somebody who is a Democrat who is so far on the spectrum that they mirror that many Republicans, and that you have Republicans who are really very liberal in a lot of ways. So you've got this incredible kind of like moderation between the party. Okay, go down to 2012. We now have 11 members of the Congress who are voting in that kind of manner, who are not just voting consistent party line, who are working together in like bipartisan type activities. That is party polarization in right there for you, so that you can see what polarization looks like. We're going to watch a short little video clip. It's a political scientist from Oklahoma State, and she's going to talk to you about party polarization and what does that mean like. When you look at the questions on your paper, though, I want to make sure you understand. So try to get a definition of party polarization from her. And then she's going to talk to you about what that looks like at different levels of the party. When she talks about elites, she means party as an organization or party in government. So she's talking about our elected officials or the chairs of the party. When she says party at the mass level, that's you and I, party in the electorate. And then the last question is, she's going to give you a definition of the responsible party model. She's going to call it a theory, but it's the same thing. And so she's going to give you her perspective on party polarization and how does that fit with the responsible party model. And then we'll kind of talk about it. I don't necessarily agree with all of her, but she's got some interesting ideas. So, and you know, you can agree with her and not me or whatever. Doesn't matter. So.
Academics studying political parties have a number of different things that they can consider when looking at the broad landscape of political parties. So some people might focus on more of the structure of parties. So when we think about party organizations, we can look at differences between how Democrats and Republicans organize themselves, and there's a lot of differences in how they form their committees, how they hold their conventions, how they select their delegates. We also can make comparisons across states and how their parties differ in terms of how they organize themselves. Another level outside of kind of the structure, we can look at partisanship in terms of the electorate. So how people come to identify themselves with being a Democrat and Republican. And in fact, most of the early kind of political behavior research on political parties really did try to identify how people considered themselves to be partisans and what it really meant to say, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican. Currently, much of the research that we see in terms of political parties is focusing on party polarization. And this is pretty much a buzzword that you're going to hear in the media, the extent to which our political parties are polarized. And polarization is really the extent to which people are on one side or the other side with really no middle ground, that there's not a centrist position. It's all or nothing, you're one or the other. But we can look at this at the elite level, and then we can look at it within the public. When we look at it within the elite level, we do see increasing levels of polarization. We see very few members of one party crossing lines to vote with the other party. At the mass level, we also see polarization, and this really is the result of the elite level. Most people are thinking that it's the citizens that are creating this polarization, but it's really not. It's the elites and the media have become more polarized, and in doing so, they actually have clarified the positions, and it's allowed members of the public to also understand things to a certain extent, maybe not fully informed, but allowed them to make some choices that align them with one of the two parties, and that's creating kind of mass level polarization. This isn't to say that polarization is on every single issue. In fact, there's plenty of issues that are more valence type issues that everyone kind of wants. Everyone wants good education. But when we're talking about cultural type issues, and we're seeing this on hot button issues like gay rights and abortion, where each party has their own stances and people are joining parties or aligning with parties according to those. And it's not an environment that we're going to get away from. We're going to continue to stay in this polarized environment, which actually might not be as bad as we might think it is. In fact, in the responsible party thesis, we advocated that parties should take a responsible role and should provide clear-cut issue positions and take stands on these clear-cut issue positions so that people could join the parties and understand what they were aligning with. And while this had been going on for a number of years, it's the exact type of situation that we find ourselves in. And so polarization might not be as bad as we seem to think it is, or as the media might portray it as.
Okay. Do we need to talk through, do you guys need a little time to talk about that, or do you want to just talk through it as a group? Group. Okay, so you have to answer my questions then. Okay, so define party polarization. Melanie, did you get a definition?
The extent to which people assign themselves between parties and not willing to cross over.
I love that. Very good. The extent to which people assign themselves to a party and they're not willing to cross over. I think that that's really important. I personally make a distinction between party loyalty and party polarization, and that could just be me. But for me, party loyalty is embracing a party because I like their platform and I like what they stand for. Party polarization in our country right now looks a lot like I'm going to choose this party because I don't like you instead. Maybe choosing the lesser of two evils in a way, but I'm embracing this to make you lose. I'm not sure that, others might not agree with me, but that's my perspective. Okay, all right, so how does polarization look different with our elites versus regular people? Who got that one? Brad, what'd you get?
I didn't really get one. All I know is kind of like the elite and the media are
Okay.
polarizing, and the electorate is not so much. They're still kind of the same.
Okay, that's true. So polarization, she said, exists everywhere. This would be an example of polarization in the elite. This would be this lack of crossover voting, this very strict, I'm not going to work with you, the lack of bipartisanship. And so she said it was really intense, right? And she said that it originated with them. And then the media perpetuates that by giving us that image over and over and over about how different they are, okay? In terms of you and I, polarization did exist, but what did she say it existed on?
Cultural.
Yeah, it's like issues. So there are issues which get people's hair up. They get people upset. Abortion, that evokes a feeling in people. What else? What would be? She called it a valence issue. I would call it a wedge issue. What would that be? Give me some issues that make people feel really strong.
LGBT
Gun control.
Okay, gun control, rights for people with different sexual preferences or orientations, abortion, immigration, right? So those things inspire really intense passions. So I'm going to be honest with you. I know that polarization exists, and I know that people are issue polarized. I still don't think that the majority of the electorate is polarized in terms of this or that. I have a lot of friends who are very politically minded who we do not agree, but we can find common ground. And so I do think that there's more common ground amongst the electorate, but there are issues that we just don't talk about, right? Because people feel so strongly about them. And increasingly, as government regulates those things, that's kind of what's happening. All right, responsible party thesis. Wilson, did you get that? Okay, what was the responsible party thesis?
I didn't get it.
Oh, so you just shook your head and told me you did? Okay, who got it? Brianna, did you get it?